we're going to do your fully documented pages with your graphics project we started last time. And remember what your task was over there in the old graphics project. Your task was to basically take and on one page demonstrate multiple libraries. And W3 Schools talks about each one. They didn't give you an example of every one, so I'm going to jump down to that last one. But first I'll go over how I'm going to structure my one web page. And we can use, and I actually did a little searching with AI helping me too, and it gave me a completely different library. But let's take a look at the structure of my code here. What I did is, first thing I looked up is Canvas graphics, and just to make it stand out, I'm going to put a little commenting here in my page. This is my Canvas graphics section. I'm going to put a little divider there, make it nice and readable. So my Canvas graphics demo, I'm going to make that an maybe I'll make that an H1 instead of an H3. And then I create my divs, and then I had a Plotly graphics demo with a paragraph title. And I'll make that an H1. And then I had a div with the name myplot. Oh, up there is a div with actually two canvases, because in the Canvas one you were asked to create two charts, a scatter and a scatter and line combined. So I made two IDs, two canvas with an ID myCanvas, ID myCanvas2. Went to the example for the first one and just simply copy pasted the script right into my script code for that part. And then I'll put a little divider comment here. This was then the second part of that, was to create a similar script, this time referencing Canvas 2 as the element to display that second canvas. So the strategy is declare divs that are going to display it. Down in the code, have the script that does the displaying in one, the scatter chart, and I'm gonna zip through the code for the scatter chart because we went over it last time. And then I have the Canvas 2, did the same type of thing with a random numbers this time for the scattered, the same data for the scatter chart that I used in the first one. So X array and Y array get reused down here in the second one, right here, doing the scatter chart. And then the second section did a lot simpler way to plot a line. You set your intercept, draw a line, do the line 2 method, and then stroke, and then, or actually set the style, and then draw it using the stroke method. So learning Canvas, you basically learn the methods of the canvas. And I think, as I was asking you in the section, is in each section, where did I say that? In each section, make separate section, each with an introduction and a link to the documentation pages. So although I have skimped on the discussion of it, I think I put a link to the documentation pages. Oh, maybe I didn't. It looks like that might be missing. Graphics demo. Yeah, I'm missing the part to the link for the documentation section. So I should, maybe I'll put that here in my little documentation part. I'll put in here I'll do a paragraph. P add links to main pages about Canvas. So I get a reminder to myself that I need to add that. And then I had the script that dealt with Canvas and Canvas, or myCanvas and myCanvas2. There's the script. And then I created a different section to do the Plotly. Where's the Plotly part? There's Plotly, new plot. Here's the Plotly demo code. So let's put a little divider here, and I'm inside of JavaScript right now. So here's the Plotly code, and I do have, at least in comments, where I got my Plotly reference. declaring multiple arrays, and then my plot is going to get the plotly code. And where is my plot? Well, let's back up here in the HTML section. There is my plotly graphics. So I declared the HTML sections up above, then I had my scripts. I'm going to do a little different for the next sections. I had the HTML and then the script that dealt with that HTML. Down here now for the other ones, I have started just the HTML sections. What I'm going to put here is some links and things, and then I will insert the scripts right there in terms of a div that is going to display the chart, and then I'll have the scripts in separate sections. If you want to be more modular, you could put your JavaScript for each part in a separate JavaScript file. I'm putting it between separate script tags. So I'm going to jump to the, I don't think it's that hard, but it may be slightly harder. Let's see if we can find out how to do the D3, and then I can come back and add the JavaScript and the other code for chart and Google chart. So D3, how do we do that? Well, let's go back and look at the W3 Schools link that I gave you and jump down to the D3 section right there in W3 Schools. And let's see their first example. I'm going to jump right to the try it yourself because they give you code snippets that are incomplete. Look at that. That is an incorrect code snippet right there. See, that's a bad URL. Let's go to the try it yourself, and I see there. Oh, maybe it did. Maybe it will work. I had a HTTPS in front of my other one. Maybe that will work. Let's try it. So I'm going to put that reference to that script in there, copy, and then go to my my VS Code, and I'm going to put in here these scripts. You can put multiple script statements in your HTML. I'm putting the one that refers to D3 right there, down there. Now, you can be more organized, and you can put all your scripts together and all your HTML together. I'm doing it separating out my HTML, and I'm going to put a divider in between each one because I think that looks cool. Okay, so here is that first part. Now let's see what else I need to do. So they show that they have to reference a script before they do the script, and they have an H2 with a little statement. The script below selects the body segment and appends a paragraph of the text hello world. Well, this is pretty boring. Is that what I wanted to do? I wanted to do a D3 scatter chart. Well, let's skip that part. Let's go to the scatter chart. Here's the D3 scatter chart. Ooh, that looks a little more complicated. Let's go again to the try it yourself. This is where I see the proper script reference. There it is. So they actually gave you a bad reference in both places. You have to have, I believe you have to have the HTTPS in front of that for that to work, if I recall the errors I got when I did this. So there I have the reference to the script. If you want to put a little comment in there like needed for D3 demo. And now let's see what they did here. Oh, they declared in the HTML part of it a thing called an SVG with an ID equals myplot. And then in their script, they must reference that thing with the name myplot. So I'm going to put that same thing in mine. Control-C copy. Come back here, and I'm going to put it right here. And I'm going to call it, instead of myplot, I'm going to call it myplot D3 because I have other generic myplots. And you should know your HTML that I'm declaring some element of a tag SVG with these two styles, width 500 px, height 500 px. Notice this is in style format rather than parameter. Style equals, and then style equals like URL equals. I'm using the style method. And now I can go back to my script and see, okay, in my script, the only thing that's different about mine is I'm going to be using myplot3D instead of myplot. Let's see, where do they reference myplot? Let's see here, where do they reference myplot in the actual script? I don't see where they reference myplot. Am I missing something? Here we go. Here is where they reference myplot, when they actually do the d3.select. So that's the only place I need to change it to myplot d3, and then I think we're all working. So I'm going to copy paste that code as well. And remember, I don't want any more HTML. This is the script part of it. Copy and paste. Now the thing you're learning when you do this kind of coding is you're learning to read other people's code and fix things like this. What's happening here? I got a red underscore xmax because it's saying I can't redeclare a block scope variable xmax. Well, I can't redeclare it. Well, let's just take our declaration out of there. Now I'm using it instead of declaring it by removing the const in front of it. That means it's been declared already. I'm allowed to give it another value, as long as it hasn't been defined const. If it's been defined const, I have to go back up to where it's used and change it from a const to a let. And it was already given a let because I used this twice. Any question, John?
We're running into the same issue we did last class, as far as if we had it in a function, the variables would be local instead of global. We wouldn't have to keep renaming them.
That is correct. And if the code were similar as before, I would worry about functions. But because I'm not expecting the similar type of code, I'm not going to try to put them in functions. But you are right, a function might help me avoid that. But turning them into functions, I could just see me running into more trouble than I want to. So I see this here too. Data, yeah, I remember that's already been declared, so I'm going to remove the const. But I believe data was declared a constant up above, so I have to go, let's see, another thing I can do here in VS Code, I can right click, go to definition, and there I can change it from a const to a let. And that will allow me to change what's in data if I want to use it again in a different way. Remember, JavaScript is loosely typed. The only thing that's required here is I'm using const or let. I can assign anything I want to data, even different data types. So it starts out as an array of an object. Down here, data now becomes, what does data become? Data becomes an empty array, and then I start pushing things into it. So I'm modified my reference to data, and now look at that, no more red squigglies. Doesn't guarantee I don't have errors, but remember that one thing I did, I renamed my IG to be myplot D3, and I have to find out where I'm referencing myplot. Right there, change that to D3 instead of myplot. Now I believe all this code will work, only because VS Code isn't giving me any squigglies. I don't know for sure it's going to work until I save this and refresh my view of this page. But let's walk through the code now. Now that I've done a little bit of copying and pasting pretty wildly, I'm using, where did it go? D3. Where's my D3? Here, D3. Okay, let's see if I got this right. I'm including the definitions of what are all these things that D3 can do. I'm declaring an SVG based on an example I saw from W3 schools. So I'll put in a comment here. Based on W3 schools example. Schools example. And I might as well put in the reference to that, copy that line, and give it in my comments. So an SVG, I don't even have a clue what an SVG is, but that's what was there in the example. And the script has some decent comments, x size, y size, margin, and then x max and y max is x size minus 2 times the margin. That makes sense. So that's where I get my margins around my plotted points. I'm declaring 100 points, creating an empty array, and this is the part that I'm asking you to add comments where appropriate. I don't think here it's fairly obvious. I don't think I need to add more comments. It might not be bad to put another comment here, so it tells me you know what you're doing. I'm declaring an empty array, or initialize an empty array to an empty array. And what am I doing here? I am adding a math.random times xmax. So a random number that's going to go 0 to just slightly less than xmax, and another random number that goes from 0 to less than ymax. So I'll put a little comment here. Fill array, or add an element, add random x, y to the data array from 0 all the way up to x max, and 0 all the way up to y max are my possible values. And since we've done random numbers before, I don't have to go back and look over the definition of random. I remember it gives me a random number from 0 to less than or equal to 1. So multiplying it by x max means I'll get a random number all the way almost up to less max. And what do I do here now? Now this is where the mystery comes in. I'm doing something with a D3 object. I'm somehow selecting my plot D3 as an element in my page. And then I'm doing this. I'm doing an append of the SVG and append of a G. What in the world is G? I haven't even seen G yet, but apparently I'm appending G. And do I even declare G somewhere here? Maybe sometime. And then I append the attribute transform translate, something to do with the margin. So I'll put in here in comments with mystery methods.
Is SVG a format?
SVG is my element up here, right here. There's my SVG, and maybe it's a format. Sounds like it could be a format, SVG. I'd have to go look at the documentation for D3 to find out what that is. And I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to make sure it works first. And then, let's see here. This is declaring my, oh, somehow I can declare control my x-axis. G is appending something called G. It looks like that's my y-axis. And then, oh, there's my y-axis. So scale linear. So these various variables are having to do with modifying my scatter plot. Don't worry about reading the documentation. Just put in here some mystery methods that came with example. If you want to dig into the documentation to explain what append a G means in SVG, you could do that. But I'm going to skip over that, and finally then come down here and say, here's where then it's creating the dots. Oh, and it's returning an elements of an array D, 0 and 1. Function takes a parameter, returns the array 0, 1. Boy, that's all looking pretty interesting. I'd have to dig into what in the world this is doing for me. A inline declaration of a function that takes a parameter D and returns elements in 0, 0, and 1 of that parameter, treating it as an array. That's kind of mysterious there, what's happening there. I'd have to go back and see where are we actually using this CX and CY. I'm guessing this is all hidden in the documentation of how you use D3. I'm not going to worry about the documentation. Maybe I'll just put here and put CD3 documentation for all the append things. Got all these append things and attributes. I'm not going to worry about that.
We won't get docked if we don't comment these then.
Only if you're missing the comment at the top and not have anything whatsoever. So make sure at the top you put, this is assignment to just demonstrate use of graphics. So far, I've copy and pasted from the example. Let's just make sure that there's no errors in it right now. It's not terribly nicely aligned. Let's see here. Let me tab out that line right there. Shift tab. And that's the start and end of my scripts for using D3. Let's save that. And let's now go to my code where I'm going to now open that file, Control-O, open the graphics demo, and let's see if I got a D3 plots. They're good. I got a D3 scatter chart working. Yes, John?
Mine didn't work.
I'm not going to help you if you're trying to build a function. Let's do a little...
I gave up on the functions last class.
Oh, good, good. Well, I'll start the word cloud and then I'll come help you. How about that? Now, to debug, are you doing the code inspector and bring up the console and looking at your error messages? That's the first thing you want to do. If something's not working, bring up the inspector, bring up the console, and see if you can figure out the error message that you're getting. Usually, it doesn't take it too long, and I figure out I had a typo somewhere in my code. And when I first did that, I was getting no plot, and then I realized my variables weren't. I had a typo in a variable name. Let's do the word cloud, and then we'll come back and do a little troubleshooting. So now, I want to do a D3 word cloud. So let's do an H2 D3 word cloud. And, I don't know why my mouse is scrolling. I come back to my W3 schools. D3 doesn't show you anything except the scatter plot. They show you that it can do a word cloud, but it doesn't show you how. So it's our job to figure out how to do a D3 word cloud. And I'm gonna go on my own first because I'm old school, used to searching on my own before I see if ChatGPT can help me. So let's look for D3 word cloud example. And I get a different graphing gallery, d3-graphgallery.com word cloud. There's a GitHub D3. Here's a word cloud using d3.js. Looks like I have lots of word cloud examples. I'm going to go to this one. This one looks nice. What do I have there? Word cloud, the D3 graph library. Let's visit that site and see if they help me use this code. And here I found a gallery. Here is something, let's see, I like this cool looking one, and even better, there's an animated one. That looks pretty cool. If I click on that, I believe it will show me the code. Isn't that lovely? So I'm gonna go here, copy and paste that in my code, and I'll put a paragraph. Here is where I found it. And you know what? I'm even going to make that an anchor element. href equals that in quotes and the anchor element, and put the text there, and also make sure it opens in a new tab, target equals underscore blank. But now let's do it by just taking their example code. So let's see what their example code does. They include two scripts from d3js.org So I'm going to put that in my body right there, copy their script lines, and I'm going to put it right here in my section, D3 example word cloud. Now let's see what their code looks like for actually generating it. In the script, oh, I see they started a script, and I'll include the rest of that script. Right all the way to the end of the script, right there. Copy and paste.
I can't find the website you found.
Ah, I looked for word cloud. Go ahead and look for D3 word cloud example. I think that's what I searched for. I'll put found it. Now let's look through the code here. It gave me a lot of scripts. Let's take a look at that code. It's defining a lot of functions here. Let's walk through this code that they gave me. That's down right here to the word cloud. Here, where are we? Here we go. So word cloud example. They declare a function word cloud, and they have a selector as its parameter. Now I see, because the copy and paste didn't quite indent correctly, I'm going to get this indented a little nicer for me. Right. Oh, it's defining functions within the word cloud function. So I'll go all the way to the bottom and indent all the way right to here, it looks like. And tab in. So this is all my word cloud function, and then notice what they do then at the very end. They declare a variable called my word cloud, referencing the body. I have a feeling I'm going to need some other div. I'm going to call that, how about I call that div word cloud. Now the reason I knew I can do that, when I see they're referencing the body and their example is showing the word cloud on one page, I'm pretty sure that this is the ID of the div that the word cloud is going to be encapsulated in. If I see body, I know, well, I don't want to put it in my body, I want to put it in the div word cloud. So before I forget, I'm going to come up here, and where's my word cloud start? Right here. Let's declare our div right here. Div ID equals D3 word cloud. And I can put a little comment, word cloud should display here. In case it doesn't, I'll know that my script didn't do its thing. So go back down to my script now. Div word, I meant D3 word cloud. D3 word cloud. Got to get that name to exactly match the name of the div up here that it's going to display in. So I'm declaring a word cloud. The selector, now they didn't comment that enough. I'm going to put a little comment here. Selector is the name or the ID of the element in which to display the word cloud. Now I figured that out by staring at it the first time and finding what in the world this selector is. I came way to the bottom and see after they declare all their functions, then they call two functions. One to create a word cloud object, and the second one to then show the new words in that word cloud object that it created. So I saw when they used body there, that was immediately, oh yeah, that's where the cloud is going to show up in. So let's go back now and read through the code here, see if we can figure out what's happening here. This, I have no clue. I'm just going to put question mark, CDoc. I have no idea. Something to do with scaling, that's the only thing I can figure out. Have no idea what category 20 is. This looks like it wants to do some, similar to the other. They're appending something, and then whatever gets appended has certain attributes, 500 by 500. I'm assuming that's the X and Y size because it says width and height. Again, there's that G thing. Looks like I'm appending a G to that. And its attribute is going to have transform translate. So I'm guessing this means translate whatever I'm doing to the center of my 500 by 500 box. Again, I'm just guessing what these parameters are just based on the width of a box is 500. They're doing a translate 250, 250. Decent comment here. They're drawing the word cloud, and now what in the world? Apparently the data is in a word and another strangely defined function right in the middle of there, where it returns the text of my D object. Further down, I see entering some words. Where have we defined our words? Here we go. Here is a words array using some text from the Tom Sawyer book. And let's see here. This has to do with rotating my words and things. Well, we'll just figure that we have an array of words, and if I want different words like Bible verses, I might come back and replace that text. Then they do this, get words, doing a lot of interesting things, replacing certain characters with nothing. You can see that there, so I'm going to put in comments here. Remove some special characters so it doesn't get ugly apparently. I'm doing some sort of mapping to the size of the word. It looks like it's randomly assigning a size. And then I can redraw. So there are lots of things. Oh, and it even has a little timeout function. There's doing some animation happening. I'm setting a timer. So let's put in a little comment here. Some animation happening. Now I didn't do a whole lot of reading through the code. I just copy pasted everything they had here. I recognize these multiple lines are outside of any function definitions. Everything else is defining functions that are eventually called by those two statements. Creating a new word cloud, showing the new words in the word cloud. And that's part of my script. And now, even though it's not all indented nicely as I would like, let me go see if I can indent this a little better here. All the way to function. I'm going to indent all the way up to here, just so it looks pretty, like so. You don't have to worry about indenting, and maybe there's a tool that does pretty indentation of everything. Saving it, and now let's refresh. Let's see if it actually works. Refresh. Uh-oh, my word cloud isn't displaying. Something went wrong. Let's Control-Shift-I. Check my console. No error messages. Did it not like the div? Let's see, what did I do wrong here? D3 word cloud. Div up here. Did I give it the right name? Div ID equals D3 word cloud. It used body before. I wonder, does it need to have a width? Let's go back. Refresh. It's not displaying, but it's not giving me any error messages.
It's giving me an error that one of the functions is not a function.
Scale linear.
Yeah, the scale linear function.
Make sure you include both those scripts. That happened to me initially. Now it was body before. Maybe it doesn't like it being a div? What would be the possibility here? It's possible I haven't ended my tags up here and it's confused.
I'm getting an error that's saying the script that we reference is HTTP and not HTTPS. So it's blocking it because it's
Really?
yeah.
Make sure my link is working right. I had it working. I had it broken, and then it worked just with a slight.
Yeah, it's the first script there.
This guy.
It's HTTP and not HTTPS.
Oh, right there.
Yeah.
So if you make that S, it worked.
I don't know.
Let's see what happens. Refresh.
That'd be hilarious.
Yeah, in their example, they do have the first one, HTTP. Let's see if I get an error. I have multiple pages open. I'm going to close everything but that first one. Refresh. So my word cloud, change that back to HTTP and save. No error messages for me.
It's working.
Now, what I did last time is I said, well, let's change that back to body here, right there, like the original example. Save it and refresh. And it worked. It's like it didn't like that being D3 word cloud. Now let's see how it's working. Now let's refresh. Maybe I'm just not waiting for the thing to display.
What is your D3 scale linear function declared?
Huh. Mine works if I have body and not D3 word cloud. You say you saw a scaling thing?
Yeah, D3 scaled linear is not a function for me in Abilene. Where do you declare that?
I believe it's all declared inside of here.
Really?
Now I'll go ahead and comment one out and see which one breaks. I believe if I don't have this one,
End bracket. Not a exclamation. There you go.
let's see if I get the error now. Yeah, D3 scale is undefined if I don't have that first script in there. So that's what I was getting that initially too. Because I thought, oh, when I used it up here, this is not the same one. This is V4. Look at that, I'm using V4 there. This one is using V3. So welcome to the world of coding where you may have multiple versions to work with and one may be broken or one works different. So using the one from their example had a V3 there. When I refresh, maybe he doesn't like working with divs. If I made it the body, let's give that a different name. Let's see if that has anything to do with it. Let's call it div ID equals W cloud. Save. Go down here and put W cloud there. Save. Maybe, is it showing up somewhere? It's not showing up anywhere. I wonder, is it because my div has no width here? Let's try width equals 500. apparently I have to say body. So I'm not understanding then what that means is selector. I'll change it back to body, and then it seems to work. I guess I'd have to go. I'm gonna put a little comment here. Put a little comment. Not working if not using body here.
Yeah, now it works for me. I
What?
would've changed the body.
I haven't changed the body.
I don't understand why.
The div up the top.
Oh.
So apparently it's not the ID, it's the name, it's the element.
You changed the div ID to body?
And the,
I just put body here and got mine to work.
yeah, for me it wouldn't work if I changed the div ID.
I changed that, but that's still not working. That's very strange.
So apparently, let me try something here, just for fun. I'm gonna call this, let's call this div D3. Make it a tag called div D3. And put div D3 here. Maybe it's waiting for the name of an element. Let's see if that works. Look at that, that worked. So this is not the ID of the element. Remember that selector came way up here? The selector is the tag of the element in which I'm going to display the word card. So the selector, maybe if I went to the documentation, I might get better idea explanation of that, because they use selector, and that's kind of a foggy term to me. That could mean so much, and I just thought that meant the ID. From their example, when they used the word body, that should have been my first clue that it's not an ID, it's the type of tag. So see what I did? I just made up a tag named div D3, and that's where the word cloud then appears in. Because I declared my div D3, where did I put it? Right, not there. Right here. Div D3 tag. My mouse is acting weird, it keeps jumping on me. So I'm going to put a little divider here so I can tell my code apart as I scan through it. Little sections. So there's my D3 word cloud. Save that and refresh. Now it's not a true word cloud that gives you a larger word that had the more frequency. It's just basically giving them random sizes. But it is choosing words from those sentences. So basically it's randomly organizing the words found within the sentence that it's randomly choosing of the 4 sentences. So it's kind of interesting. And how it does the animation, that's kind of a mystery to me. I think it must be built into somewhere in all of these parameters. Must be built in some of that animation when I'm drawing the words. And I don't know where that would come from. I'm assigning random colors. I'm assuming this is the animation here where I'm doing a transform and a translate. And another transform and translate.
Change this one and then it updates all of them. I created a table that's linked to, and it pulls it all from the table and inputs.
Cool.
And then I can change all the canvases at once.
Nice.
I haven't made the canvases yet.
So I jumped down to that bottom one, and again, this is an example of something you very commonly do when you're coding. You take other people's code and you incorporate it into your page. You have to figure out sort of what that code is doing, do a little troubleshooting. And the nice thing they gave you is if you go to the example here, although they don't show you the try it, they give you code that you don't know for sure if it's going to work. I suppose if you click on that link, does it show you? No, it doesn't show you the animated page. With the W3 Schools, they give you the try it. You can see the actual result of your code. Great way to test and help understand your code. Basically just looking at the code. Don't trust this. Go to the try it yourself, and then there's the code. Then you realize, okay, that I need that piece, so I know, so JavaScript knows what functions I'm going to use. HTML, here's where it's going to be referencing my plot, and then you see how it's manipulating data, and then finally doing the plot for you down here in the code. And right here is where I append some graphics to my plot. Not terribly well organized there in their code, but enough to see and give me an idea how it works. Now if I don't know what return D0 and D1 are, I can come down here and mess with it and see what happens, but I'm not going to for now, because I got other things to do. So what do I have so far? If I look at my page now, I've got the D3 thing working. I'll finally get my last one. There's the last one working. Don't need many of them. I have D3 working, but now I want to get Google Chart. Let's do a Google Chart. Let's try the 3D Pie. I have played enough with D3. Oh, but Mr. Marchand, do you need help troubleshooting anything? Are you okay?
Yes.
Is that a yes? You need help troubleshooting, or
My graph currently shows up underneath the pie chart for the previous assignment.
yeah, check the IDs. Make sure you use a different ID for each place where it's wanting to show up. That's what I found out the trick was for some of those. Because each example is always referring to to my plot. Make sure if you want it to show up somewhere else, use a different div name. Otherwise, everything's going to want to plot back on the original.
They are all using different div names. The issue is it shows a tiny little section of it in between the plotly table and the plotly pie chart. There's a little snippet of the graph.
But something is showing up, so you're getting warm from the sound of it.
Yeah.
Okay? Well, let me jump to the Google Chart 3D Pie, and then I'll come help you out. The Geo Chart sounds really interesting, but let's do the 3D Pie part first. And let's see what W3 Schools gave us for Google Charts. I think they showed us a 3D pie chart here. Here we go. Here's your 3D pie. So is 3D equals true, apparently, is the only thing that needs to change if I want to show a 3D pie chart. Well, let's see how that works. Let's go to the try it yourself. And again, I see where I'm getting the library code. I'm going to copy that into my section in my code where I'm doing my Google chart. Here's my Google chart section right here. Give a lot of white space around it. Paste in that script source and put in a little comment. Here's where I got the example from. And then let's see what they did for us. They declare a div, ID my chart. Let's copy that and give it a different name right away. I'll put the div right there. Let's call it my 3D pie chart. .pie chart. Remember, that is the name of the div, not my chart. And now their code, I'm going to just copy paste this script all the way down to there, paste it here, and replace any reference to my chart to my 3D pie chart. So paste, and now double click, select, copy, and where do they reference my chart? Let's see here. There it is. There is where they reference my chart. I'm going to change that to my 3D pie chart. And then I see that to draw it, they do this new Google visualization pie chart of the element that has the ID my 3D pie chart. Without even looking any further, I am pretty confident that this will work, but let's find out. Save it and refresh. And look at that, I got a Google 3D pie chart. All that's left for me is to go comment up the code, give a link to if I can find some documentation for the Google pie chart. All right, let's go help debug a little bit. Don't want to leave you struggling with what. Suppose the deadline's coming and I'm not sure what I'm doing, not sure why it's working, and I'm just going to jump over to ChatGPT. I'm going to ask it, example D3 word cloud. It sends me to, the similar, look at it, sends me to a v7 at d3js.org. They're using a v7.min.js. And cloudflare.com, Ajax, did we have that in ours? Cloudflare.com.
Abilene, what is your source script for the word cloud?
So there's two.
So this is going to be your challenge. In this example from W3 Schools, they sent me to V3. ChatGPT gives me an example that sends me to V7 of D3JS. And a different location of that portion of it. And then I'm sure that, well, it looks like the text looks similar.
Okay, yep, I have that.
What area
I just have.
I'm gonna go do the. Let's see, what is the one I'm missing so far? I'm missing
cloud.
the.
Well, the error I'm having is that it's not displaying the word cloud. It's reading category 20. Cannot read properties by design.
I got that when I was missing the proper link here. The category 20.
If I include the V3, it messes up
Yeah.
the dot thing.
I didn't get category 20 until I included the V3, if I remember right.
So I have all of them set to HTTPS, but I don't include the V3 because as soon as I do that,
Well, let's find out.
Plot.
What does something else break if you use that?
Yeah. So if I include what he said to include like that, so I just pasted it in. So when we put it in now, the plot is gone, and that's when I get into the scale linear as that function. But when I delete it,
Started messing with the words in the word
This
cloud. So now
kinda
I
works.
just have you paste it from
but
back
the
down.
word cloud doesn't.
I'm used to adding
And let's see your word cloud.
like all the first lines of my names.
So
Just see Intel core processor
What is
GB256
the
S3
word cloud?
2560 by 1600 widescreen
Final
IP
call to the function
actual
that we're
unibody 320 fitness
Div
graph.
D3.
and that exists.
Have you seen those games?
Right there.
The fitness graph patient has this multifunctional aerobic,
Maybe not give the ID to the body.
multi-stage aerobic capacity test that progressively gets more difficult as it continues.
The error is with cannot read properties by design. Category 20.
And where is category 20?
It's in the function of word cloud.
So it's not referencing selector. Let's do it
Started
with
watching
debugging.
the
Put a little
TV
breakpoint
show.
there.
I think I got through the first episode, but we never finished watching.
Selector. Yeah, if it doesn't know what category 20 is, it doesn't matter what your selector was. You're not
passing it right
Yeah.
now.
So now, category 20, it doesn't know what that is.
Yeah.
And that has to do with your scripts that you've included.
Right, but I think I've included all the scripts that it wants.
It may be because we're mixing versions for the difference.
Okay.
Now what I did, I put my script right before this.
Oh, we can try that. Yeah. So, that would be the V3, right?
Yeah, put that up there right before. And maybe, I didn't realize it, maybe because I was including the proper version before I came to this script, it had the proper function defined. Because when it says that, that means I'm not getting that function in any of my reference.
I'm not sure how we.
But this says, give me this library of code. You can't put that right inside of JavaScript. Put that right before your script.
So if I do this, because
Yeah.
it's messing with the other ones, and then
Yeah,
I say.
and then you can add script, start another script there.
Okay, now
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah, and then, yep. See if that fixes it. Like it's giving your word cloud. Or not.
On the console, d3.layout.cloud function.
And where is that being used?
Right. Updating words, we're passing words to it. We're saying words. No.
Take a look at my version there. Feels like you're on the right track. Is it possible you messed up in the... So here's the D3 layout. Now let's look carefully what I did. I include my script right before I'm doing all the word cloud stuff with D3. I put both of them right before I do any D3 stuff.
Okay, so the first one is the V3, what's the other one?
Rawgit.com.
Okay.
Just like in the example, I put both of those right before I'm using that script. Maybe by doing this, I didn't realize it was fixing things that would be broken if I put it at the top of my code. And maybe
that's what it is.
So we're running into a problem where you have different libraries for different examples.
Yes.
So we have to, before we do one specific example, bring in that specific library.
Yep, that's what it is.
And that is just a chronic problem with coding, is once you use one version, if you try to use something else that it depends on another version, they may not be compatible with each other. And I'm suspecting that's what's going on there, that one example only works with one version of the library, and another example uses another version. So again, the danger is if you go mix, maybe that might happen to me here too. If I use ChatGPT's example of using a word cloud, I better use this set of libraries for their example, and then if I use W3 School's example, use that set of libraries, and have the reference to the library right before my code that uses it, and then subsequent code that needs a different library, I include that library before I have that script. Sounds kind of crazy, but that's what it's feeling like, and that happens as you get more and more mature code that's used in many places. Because it's being used in many places, you're going to find multiple library versions around, and it's up to you to decipher that. Now, before we go here, see if I can. I want to see the geo one. I think that's pretty cool. I'm gonna see if I can figure out how to do the geo chart, and do they give me an example of the geo chart? No. They give me a scatter plot, 3D pie. Wasn't it Google that did me the geo chart? Google chart. Yeah, I want to try the geo chart. Apparently, W3 Schools doesn't give me an example of that. They do say you can do it. Bar charts, pie charts, 3D pie, line graph, and then nothing else. All right, so I'm going to go to ChatGPT and ask it to give me example JavaScript Google Geo Chart. Like I'm expecting, it's giving me two different scripts to use. And not a whole, I'm surprised how little amount of code there is. Let's see what it does for me. Let's see, I've got these two scripts. Actually, this script, and then the rest of it, and then one div with an ID, regions underscore div. I'm going to put it in reverse order. So I'm going to have the script there, go to my code, and go to my GeoChart section. Where's my GeoCharts? Plotly demo, Google chart, GeoChart. All right, so got the Google chart here, and there we go. So this is going to be my GeoChart. So plenty of white space around it. Paste. And that script, bring in this script with additional library. And let's see here. He wants to display it on the document called regions.div, regions underscore div. So let's paste that in here from my example. I have a div inside my body with that definition and just given a width and a height. This looks pretty easy. I was expecting to be hard. I'd like to map arrays of people and or addresses. Let's see what it gives me. Refresh. And there's my GeoChart. Not terribly exciting. I get a map and some legend, but it's like my data, I don't know if that's what I was supposed to show. Let's see what ChatGPT is telling me. What was supposed to show up here? Shows the popularity of countries and data specified in an array. Oh, it looks like it won't work unless I put a your API key in there. Oh, thank you very much. Where do I have to put an API key?
I don't think so.
There you go. You need to specify your IP if you're using this in production. Okay, so in production, I'm not using it in production. Why isn't it working then? Reloading it. And where is the reference to your API key?
I got lost what we were working on.
I don't see my reference to your API key. Did you have a question, John? Did you say you got lost?
Yeah, I got distracted watching the word clouds go by.
Well, all I did was ask ChatGPT to give me an example Google GeoChart, and I'm essentially copy pasting the code it gave me. I recognize that there's a script to load, and then it mentions needing an API key, but it doesn't say where to put my API key. Specify your API key. Where it doesn't say where that is expected to be placed.
So what I did, Mr. Manning, I created a new script tag outside of all my other scripts.
Yep.
And then I put the label H3 pie chart. I did script src, and then I did a script all by itself, script tags that hold just the Google stuff. Then right after that, I put body all by itself with only one div, the chart div.
And
So I
that's
didn't change any code, and it works flawlessly.
Really?
Yeah.
For your word, or for the GeoChart.
For the GeoChart, is that what you're trying to get working?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have to modify any code. I just had to make sure everything was completely separate from the rest of the page.
So you made a separate body
Separate
take?
everything, yeah. So scroll all the way to the bottom.
Really?
Copy paste everything except for the obviously where it says HTML doc type stuff.
So it doesn't like to play inside of someone else's page apparently.
Yeah.
They had the script and they had in the body. They just had the one div. So you basically made a separate body take.
Yeah, separate
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Interesting.
My chart now actively changes whenever it's changed.
Cool. So I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna end the body and just start a new body.
Oh wait, it's writing over. It's drawing over the canvas. I need to reset the canvas.
It's putting everything in the head.
Right now I have a
looks
weird
like.
error that might crash, but I'll show you. Zoom in a little bit.
That's so weird.
So obviously you can
Yes, I would accept the no.
so you can change your name and to re-roll as well. Yes, I accept this. Difficulty seems to be a little bit not very much affecting the game at this time. Okay. So you press enter. You can run. Kind of anything. And so what happens is it basically you can go through the cave and you can also collect refugees and they'll increase your score and you protect them. But if they die, you lose a ton of XP.
Oh, the 22.
Yeah. This literally, as soon as I added the refugees, the code starts getting weird errors. Or non-error, like just exit. But I wanted to
Why don't you go start work copying it like Samuel suggested?
So
Have stuff in the head and then a new body for
A completely new body. That's not making sense to me. Okay. Yeah, working with different libraries that use different versions.
Ah. Oh boy. Yep. So I'm working on prime checker and logical analysis in pseudocode. So I decided to see what ChatGPT would come up with for a prime checker for pseudocode. And the first thing that it gives you is a completely unoptimized version of the prime checker.
Yeah.
So then I asked, could you optimize it by getting rid of checking the even?
Yeah.
And it spits out, here's the code for doing that, and it's correct. Without only checking up to the square root. And then it'll give, but it wouldn't give me the optimizations unless I told it what to do. But it did get the code right. So it was interesting just to see what it was capable of, what it's not capable of. You can't just ask, optimize this, or make this more optimal, or speed
And it
this
depends
up.
on the sequence of questions, right? It gives you
Yeah.
different answers if you build up to.
In this, I didn't experiment too much with it, but yeah, it does get some context.
Now I did use Bing for a while until it started giving me goofy answers.
Yeah.
Bing.com. And then you go, apparently it's supposed to be newer than ChatGPT.
Is it based on GPT-4 or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Interesting.
Got a refugee. He wants to escape with you.
Do you accept this? No.
You have one refugee.
Is this a game you're writing?
That's
Yes.
a Python final project.
Cool. Hunt the
Text-based adventure
Wampus.
game.
Well, you
Yep.
can equip things from the inventory, giving an index. The refugees level up as they stay alive longer and they gain more health.
Refugees, huh?
Can you give the refugees the weapons you're not using?
They're peaceful. You must protect them.